Hi everyone, welcome back to Dragonfly Engineering. So we're out here on location at Boca Chica, Texas, or otherwise known as Star Base, Texas. And as you can see behind us, we're in front of the SpaceX launch facility, and we just passed the SpaceX spaceship building facility or assembly facility right up the road. So we're going to tour around here and check out all the sites, but as you can see, we've got ship number 20 behind us, the new launch pad, the new launch tower, and booster number 4. So let's check it out, and we're gonna get some up-close pictures and some more video. All right, so this, like I just mentioned, this is the launch facility. So right here is Starship number 20, and then right here is the big brand new launch tower with the chopsticks. And these chopsticks will actually grab Starship 20 out of the sky as it's coming in, doing its belly flop maneuver. And then behind the tower, which we'll get a better view of, is booster number 4. And here comes April. Hi, April. Oh, you can go across. And booster number 4 is on the launch mount, kind of behind the launch tower. And it's getting outfitted and basically ready for a test flight hopefully early in January. And then over there is a whole bunch of support tanks and booster number 3, I believe. Oh yeah. Yeah, and there is Star Hopper, which is the very first test vehicle that they did about a year and a half ago, I think. And now that we're still on the wide angle, I'm gonna slowly pan around so you can get an idea of the area. So we're kind of in a hurricane swept tidal marsh area. And looking down the brand new road that they built. Way over there is the assembly facility where they build the starships and then they drive them all the way down this road. So yeah, here we are, Boca Chica, aka Star Base for SpaceX. I also have a new super telephoto lens that we'll stick on this camera and check out some up-close shots as well. Okay, so here's the top of the SN20. The space tiles, or the heat tiles. And I think that's a temporary launch mount for the prototypes. And then we'll check out the tower. The top has a big cable winch that runs the chopsticks up and down, these guys. And I don't know if you can hear them, but they're working today. Oh yeah. So the heat tiles go around the top edge of the front canard because the re-entry hot plasma will actually wrap around the leading edge of that wing there. So they added a little extra heat tile to compensate for the kind of the rollover of the hot plasma from the re-entry into Earth's atmosphere or Mars atmosphere. You can see below the wing, they have some more wrapped around heat tile as well. The body of this Starship is made of stainless steel, a special SpaceX, I guess, custom formulation of stainless steel, similar to 304L stainless steel. And then the lower canard is down here. I don't think it has as much of the wrapped around heat tile. And then here in the middle is the pressurization. These spaceships basically remain pressurized all the time. Kind of like a soda can is stronger when it's got pressurized soda in it. It's the same with these starships. And then over here, we can see the other side. Coming up this side of the Starship. To the left canard and back to the nose cone. There's a few portals, like right there, which if you watch on the internet, you can see people enter and exit some of these portals to service different areas inside of the ship. All the way down. And then right down the middle is kind of a umbilical of service connections, probably up to the top header tank and other plumbing and support avionics and things like that. Yeah, and then this is the temporary or the prototype launch pad that they use for the prototype ships before they made the massive permanent launch pad for the booster. So this little launch pad was just to launch and test the Starship to 10-kilometer altitude flights. But this launch pad over here, which is just solid tubes of concrete and a massive steel top, is to hold the entire stack. So the booster, which is 70 meters tall and 9 meters in diameter, is that right?
Yeah.
9 meters in diameter, full of liquid propellant, and then the Starship sits on top. So maybe we'll go up the support tower, or the launch tower, and see the different things. There's a quick disconnect arm at 2/3 of the way up, actually mostly at the top of the tower, which connects to the booster and fuels actually it connects to the Starship on top of the booster. So this is the quick disconnect arm. So this spins around and supplies fuel, liquid oxygen, and liquid methane to the Starship, which is sitting on top of the booster. And then over here is the new tank farm, and these tanks house the liquid oxygen, liquid methane. I think some of them actually hold just water. And then there is a little bit of Starhopper, the very first prototype that they launched here about 2 years ago now. Okay, here we are on the other side of the launch facility. And here's the top of booster number 4. We'll just pan down slowly.
I was like, it's not that clear.
That's the next land in Florida.
The whole thing is going to be full of liquid oxygen and liquid methane. And then we'll check out the launch tower. You can just see the chopsticks. So those two V-shaped trusses are going to grab booster number 4 out of the sky by grabbing onto those fixed grid fins at the top, which those black steel grid fins are used to guide the booster back into Earth's atmosphere at supersonic speeds. And they actually rotate and act basically like regular wingtips at the top of the booster. But they're rigid enough, they're probably the most rigid thing in the booster other than the engine mounts themselves, that these chopstick grabbers can actually grab onto those rigid wings at the top and hold on to the booster. So the booster will fly in and basically rest on the chopsticks, and then the engines will shut off, and then the launch tower will use those chopsticks to place the booster back onto the launch mount, which is behind this building. We may have to get another shot of that. And then here is the brand new SpaceX crane that they purchased to stack boosters onto the launch mount. And then, like we mentioned, here is the tank farm. I've got an ultra telephoto lens, but here's the silhouette of the tank farm. It looks like there's 8 tanks that are cryogenic. So there's an inner tank inside of these, and this outer tank you see is basically just about 3 feet of solid insulation to keep the inner tank at about minus 200 degrees to keep the cryogenic fluids from boiling off into gas. So let's zoom way in. See how much we can see. It's kind of hard to see the screen out here. But here's some details of the quick disconnect arm, which rotates out of the way right when the booster is going to launch. And then maybe, and then you can see up here the steel cable pulley system, which actuates the chopsticks, which will lift and lower the booster after it hover lands onto the chopsticks. There it is. So that's the man lift elevator. It keeps going. So there's probably a linear actuator on the top of that black steel tube, which will shuttle the Starship or the booster towards or away from the tower itself. I'll zoom out. So that the tower has a rotation axis and a linear axis, so that it can line the booster up exactly over the launch mount, where the clamps on the launch mount will hold onto the booster or clamp onto the booster. And then the same chopstick will then catch the Starship as it's hover flying into position, and then stack the Starship onto the booster on the top of that guy right there. All right, there's some shots of Starhopper, ultra zoomed in. Let's see how close we can get. I'm way down the street right now. They basically turned Starhopper, which was the first prototype ship with just one engine in it, into a telemetry building. So there's a radar, there's cameras all over it, and a couple of pressure vessels for some reason. Not sure why they have those. I'll zoom out. SpaceX is starting to put up like a black barrier to probably just keep the public out and suppress any explosions that will occur, or hopefully don't occur but may occur in the future. So that's what that black thing is below Starhopper. So April and I are walking down the road back towards the assembly facility. There's Starhopper again. And yeah, this new tank farm that they built is kind of obscuring the view a little bit. But this is, you can see the bottom of the Starship booster. A little bit better view of the chopsticks. And we're gonna keep walking south, and I'll stop every now and then and we'll get a few pictures and some video of interesting parts that we see. That's a nice Starhopper shot. So they sure are loading up some liquid nitrogen. They're probably going to do another pressure test on the booster or perhaps the Starship. And they've effectively made like a loading dock here for trucks to unload their nitrogen or liquid oxygen or liquid methane. This guy's under pressure. I'm sitting here filming him as he's parking his truck. Here's a better view of the full launch tower. All right, here's another shot of the backside of Starship 20. This is the 20th Starship that they built. And the previous ones either blew up in testing or were scrapped because of design changes based on the ones that blew up from testing. And these are all the heat tiles that are basically snapped on to the stainless steel underbelly of the Starship with a thermal protection blanket underneath. So the black ones are like a foam ceramic, very light. And then there's like a fiberglass white thermal insulation blanket under the hexagonal foam tiles, and they snap on. They're not really glued on except for some areas, so that thermal expansion can allow the tiles to grow and shrink as they see the heat from re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. Just go, and the whole belly of the Starship is the leading edge as it re-enters Earth's atmosphere. So that entire surface is basically one big drag sail and slows the ship down. And then, like I mentioned, those canards at the top, those fins at the top and bottom, keep the belly oriented correctly to the proper re-entry angle for Earth's atmosphere. All right, so here is the top of the launch mount, and we're, I don't know, maybe 1,000 yards away from it. And you can see how booster number 4 is sitting on the launch mount. And April pointed out that you can, up here at the top, you can see the grid fins, and it's kind of a depiction of how the chopsticks will grab onto the grid fins as the booster comes in for its hover landing. But that's actually the quick disconnect arm up there, and that arm is what fuels the top of the booster, I believe, and it may also fuel the Starship as well. We'll have to wait and see exactly what the architecture is. But yeah, that's a good view of the chopsticks, and the booster basically is going to hover itself under powered flight to fit between those two chopsticks, which I believe pivot in and out. So that is the closed chopstick position. So that, imagine the booster is sitting between those two trusses, and the chopsticks come in and grab onto it and hook on or grab onto the rigid grid fins at the top of the booster. So they certainly do have security here, as you can see, because this is an active missile launch site, basically. So as long as you stay on the far side of the road, I think everyone's cool with you being out here taking pictures or spectating, but I've been told don't go to the SpaceX side of the road or that guy will talk to you. So the sad thing is serial number 2 and booster number 4 are going to wind up at the bottom of the ocean north of Hawaii. Its first flight is going to launch from here, go into a partial orbit around the Earth, and then re-enter the atmosphere north of Hawaii. And it'll do a soft water landing into the ocean, probably 100 miles north of Hawaii. And then it'll sink to the bottom of the Pacific. And that's it, engines and all. They may try to salvage it actually if it floats, but I don't think that may be the case, but we'll see. All right, so here we're looking at the lower quick disconnect that connects all the fuel lines to the booster, which is sitting on the launch pad. So this mechanism here will swing out of the way as the booster starts to lift off of the pad. And you can see the flexible fuel lines underneath that basically interface to the booster at the end of that swing arm structure. I'll zoom out. So that probably gives you a good idea. That cube structure, cubicle kind of thing with a big pipe, flexible pipe at the bottom, will release off of the booster within the last second or so of liftoff, or the second before liftoff. And then the clamps, which you can't really see, but there's clamps that go all the way around the bottom of the booster, hold the booster down by the outer skirt of the cylinder of the booster itself, where the that interlace between the engine mounts, which are also mounted basically to the outer skirt or the outer ring of the booster as well. Smile, April. We're waiting for my folks to pick us up. We walk down the road here through the launch site. Test tank, serial number 20, booster number 3, and the Star Hopper. Now we're going to go check out the assembly facility where they actually build these starships and boosters. Oh, and we can't forget booster number 4, which is going to launch here in about a month, supposedly, and fly to Hawaii in about 30 minutes. Looks like they're coming. And then here's the paparazzi camera that we've been getting some pictures with. So the mic went out a little bit on this section of the recording, so I'm going to have to voice over a little. So here we're at the assembly area of SpaceX, and this is where they build the starships and the boosters, as well as integrate the engines and everything. There are several different buildings here. These are the tents here at the end, which are supposedly hurricane-proof tents. And that's where they form the stainless steel coils into the barrel sections and build out the Starship. That building there is the mid bay, which is the first tower that they use to assemble the starships. And then this is the high bay. This is the top of the high bay, and you can see that yellow 180-ton bridge crane that they have in there. And then at the very top is actually supposedly a nightclub or a bar for Elon Musk to party in. Here's a wide view of the mid bay and the high bay behind it, as well as Starship number 21 that they're putting the heat tiles on. And then way in the back there is Starship number 15, which did the first successful flight and landing. Up there you can see someone at the top of the high bay, and then back to Starship number 16. Inside of the high bay is where they stack the barrel sections to create the boosters and the Starship. Okay, we're outside the main gate, and you can see the nose cone of serial number 21. And it's looking pretty good as far as heat tiles. It looks like it's basically done. And then right next to the high bay, which is this guy that we were talking about, the double high bay is being built behind. And then you can see a couple of, looks like Starship barrel sections, because you can see the little steel clips that the heat tiles will clip onto. That grid array of points is heat tile mounts. And yeah, here you can see just the edge of serial number 21 from the back side. And then this is the mid bay from the other side. And over there is booster number 3 and Starship serial number 16, the first one that actually stuck its landing, so they decided to keep that one intact, looks like. All right, here's another shot of serial number 21 with its tile work and the mount for its lower canard wing. And actually, I was watching Scott Manley, and he described that orange adhesive stripe is apparently an old NASA heat tile adhesive that they used on the space shuttle, but I may be quoting him incorrectly, but I think that's correct. Yeah, that's a partial Starship with heat tiles on it. And then there is its nose cone right there with all of its heat tiles. And then that crane will probably put the nose cone onto the serial number 21 Starship, which will probably be the one that does the first full orbit and lands back here at Boca Chica, or Starbase, whichever you prefer. All right, we got another view of the assembly facility, and you can see a test that's undergoing on one of the booster sections. This is a stainless steel cross-section of the, or not cross-section, but a barrel section of the booster. And you can see that they're conducting stress tests, what April and I call the can crusher, and I think everyone else does too. But if you look at that structure there in the distance, you can see that it's got a top steel ring and a bottom steel ring and a whole bunch of massive rigging ropes. And on the bottom of those rigging ropes are huge hydraulic cylinders, each of which probably produce over 200 tons of force, because that's what I believe is the thrust of a single Raptor engine. And it looks like they're doing fatigue testing to make sure that the booster doesn't buckle under the load from 29 times 22 tons of force, effectively crushing down the booster until it picks up enough momentum to get into the upper parts of the atmosphere and into outer space. So that is I don't know if it's a destructive test or not, but they are going to be crushing that thing and testing the structural integrity of the barrel section of the booster. And in the background you can see one of the serial number Starships. I still believe that's number 16. Or no, actually I think that's number 15. And then booster number 3, which was a prototype that never actually went to the launch facility. Or actually I think maybe it did and they brought it back. I don't know all the history of everything that happens here. And then over there is the oxygen refining or distillation plant. So SpaceX has been buying liquid oxygen or liquid nitrogen that just went by, but they've been purchasing liquid oxygen to fuel their rockets and their tests. But now they're generating their own oxygen on site with that cryogenic oxygen distillation tower. And it basically extracts oxygen out of the atmosphere. And they're probably pulling nitrogen out at the same time because they need both for testing or launching the rockets. Then over here we can get another view a little bit inside of the tent there. And the tent is where they do a lot of the welding of the barrel sections of the booster and the rockets, and the starships. And then here's some partially finished booster sections out in the yard to be stacked. All right, now we're out here at the beach. This is Boca Chica Beach. And then right from the beach, you can get a good view of the Starship booster and launch pad and the launch tower. Yeah, talk about a nice beach scene. I guess you can just see the chopsticks from this vantage point. I'm kind of sitting down on the sand. And you can just see the tip of SN20 there. Let's zoom in, get this vantage point. We're out at the windy beach, so the picture may be a little shaky. I apologize. Where are the chopstick arms? That's some good jellyfish.